Hey guys, it's Josh here from the Final Whistle Pod. Today we're back with another video in the same structure as the last two. It's going to be our top 5 offseason moves. So today it's going to be for the Premier League. So we're going to be going through our top 5 Premier League moves of this summer window. So let's jump into it. Like our previous ranking videos, we're going to start with some honorable mentions, some moves that I liked but didn't quite make my list. So the first player we're going to start with is Joshua Zirkzee to Man United. So I'm not going to go to Joshua Zirkzee's FBref page. We spoke a lot about him in the Man United video, but as you guys know, if you haven't watched it, go check it out. But as you guys know, he's a very creative forward. He's good at bringing his wingers into play. He's good at driving in. I'm very happy about this signing as a Man United fan because I think he can offer us something different. I think Rasmus Højlund is more of a box striker, but I think Zirkzee can drop in, carry the ball, play players like Marcus Rashford, Amad Diallo, Alejandro Garnacho threw on goals, so I'm very excited about this signing for United. I like it a lot, but it didn't quite make my top 5. The next move we're going to talk about is one I like a lot. It's Archie Gray from Leeds United to Tottenham Hotspur. So we're at his FBref page now, but before we get into the numbers, I just want to talk a little bit about what kind of player he is. He's very press resistant, he has good feet, he's tidy with the ball, he can pass well, he can defend well. I think he reminds me a little bit of a Kobe Mainoo. Obviously they're not the same stature or whatever, but he can dribble out of those tight situations. He's very press resistant, but he also has a lot more versatility, as at Leeds this season in 30 games he was deployed at right back. Now, one thing I really like about this move is that in the past, Ange has asked his right backs to invert into midfield, and that's something that Archie Gray does very well. A lot of his clips going forward at right back, you see him inverting into midfield, dribbling past players, and I think he looks really good in that role. But also from the heart of midfield, he can drive, he can dribble well, he can pass well, and I think these things are all very encouraging. Looking at his numbers versus midfielders, you can see that he carries the ball very well, he takes on players in midfield, and he puts up a decent amount of tackles. I think that I think they paid around £30 million for an 18-year-old of his quality. I don't think that's a bad move. I think this also adds depth in that Spurs team. I think they're building a very strong squad over there. Yves Bissouma had a rough back end to the season. I think this is a good depth piece because he can play in those areas. I'm not sure if he's ready to play as a lone 6 yet, but I definitely think he can play in a pivot, as an 8, or in that right back slot. So I really do rate this move, but it just misses out on my list. The next move we're going to speak on is Max Kilman from Wolves moving to West Ham. So now we're at his FBref page. He's a big, physical, left-footed center back that has a very, very outstanding attribute. He played every minute for Wolves last season, so he's very durable. You're not going to have to worry about him getting injured. He burst forward a lot into space. He passed well. As you can see, he showed off a fine final ball whenever he would burst forward. 74th percentile in expected assists. He put up some solid defensive numbers. 86th percentile in blocks. 80th percentile in clearances, as you can see. And I think with the outgoings of Ogbonna, of Kara, I think £40 million is a fine fee to shore up this West Ham backline. So now we're going to move on to another West Ham transfer. It was one of my favorite players in the championship this past season, Crysencio Summerville. So now we're at his FBref page. You can see a whole lot of green in those attacking areas. I mean, he has it all. Dribbling, carries, passes. He passes well. His shooting numbers, his goal numbers, they're all there. Some people will say to take this with a grain of salt because he was in the championship, but we've seen several players make that transition from the championship to the Premier League. He as well had a solid season in 22-23. I think this is a great move for West Ham. I think he'll be great across from Kudus or Jared Bowen, but I think that left wing spot is his, and I'm very excited to see what he can show at West Ham this upcoming season. The next player we're going to talk about moved to Crystal Palace on a free from Lazio, and that player is Daichi Kamada. So now we're at his FBref page. He didn't have the best of seasons with Lazio last year, only putting up 4 goal contributions in the league, but as you can see, his FBref page is still very, very green. He created well, he took a good amount of shots, he carried the ball well, and most importantly to me, or the most impressive number, is that tackles number at 3 per 90 in the 91st percentile. The club he was at before he moved to Lazio was Frankfurt, and here's why I think that can help a lot at Palace. So as we can see, I would say his best seasons were that 2021 season and that 22-23 season. He put up a very solid amount of goal contributions in the league. And his manager that he worked under was Oliver Glasner, the manager that has been fantastic for Palace, had them on that incredible run of form. They were winning a lot of games, they were scoring a lot of goals, and I think Daichi Kamada can return to that form under Oliver Glasner. I think this move is great for Palace on a free. I think he's a very quality player, and I think the move will pan out just right for them. Now we're going to speak on Tosin Adarabioyo, who moved from Fulham to Chelsea on a free transfer. So now we're at his FBref page. Before we get into the numbers, this move did not make a lot of sense to me at first. I personally wanted him at United. I thought because of our lack of right center backs and Rafael Varane leaving on a free, I thought it'd be a perfect move for us. But I felt like Chelsea had a good amount of right center backs. But with Trevor Chalobah leaving now, I think this is a great move on a free transfer. Adarabioyo had a very solid season at Fulham last season. I think getting him on a free is a great move. As you can see, he's very strong aerially. He's a goal threat as well. And I think that this move will just help Chelsea add to that depth. If someone isn't performing, you move Tosin into that role. And I think he will do better than someone like Benoit Badiashile, who I'm not a huge fan of. So I think Tosin Adarabioyo to Chelsea was a very solid move, especially on a free transfer. So next we're going to move on to Luis Guilherme, who moved to West Ham United from Palmeiras. So now we're at his FBref page. He only played 5 games this season, put up 1 assist, but as you can see by the numbers, he's a very strong dribbler. He creates well, and I think that this could be a very promising move from the future. From what I've watched, I've only caught highlights, but he looks like a very, very promising player, and I think this is another move in the right direction for West Ham. I like their window a lot. He's only 17, so once again, I think this is a move for future. I could see him doing another season at Palmeiras before he comes to West Ham, but I think this is a very exciting move, and I like it. The last name in the honorable mentions might be a little bit controversial. It's going to be Mr. Aura himself, Riccardo Calafiori. So, to be honest, until a couple hours before I recorded this video, Calafiori was in my top 5. But one thing changed for me. As I watched more footage, I saw that he struggled with quicker players, and I felt like it's not going to work out as great as I thought in the Premier League. Now, I think he'll still be a solid player. It's not like he's getting blown by every second, but he does struggle with players who have pace down the line, and he's going to be dealing with that almost week in, week out in the Premier League. As you can see on his FBref page, though, his creative numbers are amazing versus center backs, which is another part of my concern. I don't think he's going to be getting into that team over Gabriel. I think that that spot is Gabriel's locked down, so these numbers compared to center backs, I wish I could compare to fullbacks, but it's not there. But compared to center backs, you can see those interceptions. I want to highlight that. He's a very aggressive defender. He can push up, go meet the attacker at the point of attack, and be very aggressive. He jumps into tackles sometimes a little too much, but a lot of times it works out for him, as you can see by the numbers. He's an aggressive defender. He crosses the ball pretty well. He can overlap well as a left back, but the thing that really kept him off this list for me was his difficulty with players down the line with pace. So he was really close, really close to making my list, but it was just that little thing that took him off for me. So, to start off my top 5, I've got Omari Hutchinson leaving Chelsea to move to Ipswich Town on a permanent deal. So now we're at his FBref page. As you guys can see, there's a lot of green there. These numbers aren't against the top 5 leagues, but he has fantastic numbers. He carries the ball very well. He's a 2-footed winger, in my opinion. He is naturally left-footed, though. So when he's flying down that right flank, he can cut in on his left and shoot, or you can go to the byline and cross. He also shoots well from that angle. He's a really exciting player. I'm sure some of you guys have seen that banger he scored in the championship this year, cutting onto his left and curling it around the keeper. I think he's a very exciting player. Obviously, you can see he dribbles well, and he's a very good presser. As you can see, he's putting up 2.21 tackles per 90. His goal numbers are also good as well. He outperformed his XG by a lot this year, which is a good sign. And I think even more than him being a fantastic player, I think this signing was really crucial for Ipswich to make, because I think whenever you're coming up to the Premier League from the Championship, it's really important not to lose the players that got you there. You look at Burnley last year, who dominated the championship in the 21-22 season. They lost players like Ian Matson, who I'm going to speak about later in this list, that led to them struggling in the Premier League. So I think this is a huge signing for Ipswich, as they're keeping one of the players that got them here. At number 4 on my list, I have Savio, who moved from Troyes to Manchester City. So now we're at his FBref page. As you guys can see, he's a great carrier, a great dribbler, one of the best in Europe. He can play both flanks, but I'd say he's probably more of a right winger. That's where he plays for Brazil, and that's what he said he prefers to play. I think he's a lot more dynamic on the right wing. He can go inside and outside. On the left, he's a lot more one-dimensional. He goes more to the outside, but he still made his presence felt on loan at Girona last season off the left. I think some things he can work on are for sure his weak foot and the amount of shots he takes. Obviously, you guys can see 1.36, 7th percentile. It's not a good number. He put up 10 assists this season in La Liga. He outperformed his XG, which is a good sign. But I do think he can work on his crossing on that right foot. He can also just work on the weak foot in general, being able to cut in from the left and shoot on the right if City need him to play there. I doubt he's really going to play on the left for City. I think he's more of a right winger, and I think the wing rotations on the left is going to be Grealish and Doku, and on the right it's going to be Bernardo and Savio. So I do think he can work on his weight of pass a little bit as well, but I think if he can just take more shots in general. I don't think he's a bad striker of the ball per se, but I think he just needs to take a little bit more shots. I think he can be an electric player for City. And another thing that he brings to City is that pace to stretch out a defense. I think Doku is very good at accelerating in tight spaces, but over a long space. He's not a long pace type player, is something that Pep Guardiola has said. I think Savio is the first long pace type of player they've had since Leroy Sané, so I think this will add a new element for City. They'll be able to stretch out back lines, and I like this move a lot. So at number 3, I have Ian Matson, who moved from Chelsea to Aston Villa. So for Ian Matson, it was a similar situation as Savio. His parent club was Chelsea, but for majority of the season and where he played most of his football was on loan at Dortmund in the Bundesliga. Just starting at the top here of his percentile grades, he had a great eye for goal. He scored in the Champions League for Dortmund, and he scored a couple times for them in the Bundesliga as well. I think he's a very strong progressive passer, as you can see by the numbers. 5.35 per 90 is a very good number. He inverts well into midfield as well. He looked great there at Dortmund, but he also pushed up wide sometimes, and I think that fits Villa very well. I think Villa is very dynamic, and they've shown the capability to shift into that back three several times with Ezri Konsa as a wide center back, and I think that this team fits Ian Matson very well. Obviously, when he first came, someone further up my list hadn't signed yet, so it was thought that he would invert into midfield. But now that that hole that Douglas Luiz left is filled, I think that he will be able to push up as almost like a wide midfielder, pushing up the pitch. We've seen him play left wing in the past for Chelsea, so I think he could do something similar to that role in certain points of games, and I think that this is a very good signing for Villa. I think £35 million is a fine fee, and I do like the move for Ian Matson as well. I think he can develop very well. Some have called his defending into question. I think if one person can develop it, even though I don't personally think it's that bad, I think Unai Emery is a great coach to help him develop his defending, so I do like this move for both parties, and I am a big fan of Ian Matson, so I'm excited to see what he can show in the Premier League. At number 2, we have another Villa transfer, and that transfer is Amadu Onana from Everton to Aston Villa. So now we're at his FBref page. As you guys can see in that defensive section, he's very strong in the tackle. He's very strong aerially. He's 22 years old, 6'4", so he's a big young player. I think this is a cool replacement for Douglas Luiz. It's a very different profile. I feel like Luiz could get forward more, could create more chances, but I think Onana is more solid defensively. Some people critique his ability to go forward, but I think that can more be attributed to the play style of Everton, because I think at the Euros he looked very solid carrying the ball and passing well. Speaking about his possession play at Everton, I think he had some decent turns. He passes backwards a lot, but that's not necessarily a bad trait. He's just not much of a forward passer all the time. There are some clips of him trying things. They don't go exactly to plan, but he does still have some sort of creative mind. I think Boubacar Kamara will be a nice partner for him at Villa. I really do rate Boubacar Kamara. He can be a deep line playmaker. He can be a regista type. I think he could be a lone six. He's that good. So I think that's a good person to pair Amadu Onana with. And I do like this signing. This was also a big statement signing for Villa. There were some big clubs that were in for Amadu Onana. Arsenal had been linked to him in the past, Man United, Barcelona. So I think this is a statement signing for Villa. Another great signing that can help them with their Champions League campaign. Obviously, with the signings that they're making, like Philogene, Matson, Onana here, I think it's showing that they don't want their Champions League campaign to end up like Newcastle. Samuel Illing Jr. as well, I forgot. I think they're making strides to not have their Champions League campaign end up like Newcastle's, and I think this is another strong move. I think he can develop well in a better side, as he did at the Euros. He showed some better levels at the Euros with Belgium, so I think he'll do the same with Aston Villa this upcoming season. So finally, at number 1, I have Yoro from Lille to Manchester United. I'm not going to speak on him too much. We already spoke on him in the Manchester United summer window video, but I do think this is the number 1 move of the window. You can call me biased if you want, but this is truly my opinion. He has loads of potential. He's long, he's athletic, he's good in the tackle, he's a good passer. Obviously, that injury is such sad news to hear. I feel like United is so unfortunate with this stuff, but I think beating Real Madrid to his signature was huge, and I think he can be a huge player for the future for United. So to conclude my top 5 Premier League summer transfer window moves, at number 5, I have Omari Hutchinson. I think he's a super exciting player, and it's great for Ipswich to be able to keep a player who helped them get to the Premier League, and it can help them stay in it. At number 4, I have Savio to Manchester City. I think he's a super exciting dribbler, and I think he can help them a lot in this upcoming season, adding some explosiveness down that right side. At number 3, I have Ian Matson to Aston Villa. I think he is a great player, a great left back, an upgrade on Luca Digne in my opinion, and can invert into midfield as well as push up as a left midfielder / left winger. At number 2, I have Amadu Onana moving to Villa. I think Villa beat out some big clubs for his signing, and I think this is a move that can help them stay in the Champions League past the group stage, and also help them stay in the top 4 in the Premier League. And last but certainly not least, at number 1, I have Yoro to Manchester United. I think this guy has loads of potential and can be a huge player in United's future. So thank you guys for watching this video on my top 5 moves of the Premier League summer transfer window. Go follow our socials, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. I hope you guys enjoyed this one again, and we'll see you in the next one.